Defense News. It's proudly sponsored by Navy Federal Credit Union. If you're a member of our nation's armed forces, the Department of Defense, or if your family is, we'd be proud to serve you too.
On this episode of Defense News Weekly, a special show featuring some of America's greatest military heroes. What defines courage? That was the question we posed to nearly a dozen Medal of Honor recipients, heroes of wars spanning from Vietnam to the conflicts in Iraq and Afghanistan. If there are any people on the planet able to give true insight into the topic, these are some of them. As part of a partnership with the Congressional Medal of Honor Society, Military Times was able to talk to these men to hear what they had to say about the concept of courage and how everyday people can manifest it in their own lives. Most of us will never see true combat on the battlefield, but that doesn't mean we can't be brave, they said. Today, we bring you several of these conversations from our series, The Honor Project, Reflections on Courage. First up, meet Sammy Davis, a Medal of Honor recipient from the Vietnam War who earned his renown by manning a damaged howitzer while under heavy attack at a fire support base and saving several of his fellow troops while wounded. Davis has a unique take on the nature of courage, one that might surprise you. Have a look.
One of the things that is with me almost every night is the eyes. There were 42 of us and 1,500 of the enemy. And they were across the river from us. When they were wading off into the water, and they would go underwater, and when they came back up, it was about 10, 12 feet from me. And the look in their eyes is something that I'll never forget, because it was fear, astonishment. It's always with me. What I have discovered in my life, I'm not a brave man. What I believe in my heart that most people perceive as courage is love. When I looked across the river and I seen my brothers over there crying for help, it was the love in my heart that gave me the strength and the fortitude to cross that river and go get them and bring them back. Courage is you understand in your heart that you don't lose until you quit trying. Courage is to just keep going. No matter what you see before you, no matter what you see behind you, you just keep doing what you have to do to get the job done. Because all of us have this innate fear of whatever, of living in our hearts. But when you constantly are standing up and build courage in your heart, all these things that are coming to your life, things that you learned lessons on yesterday, help make you a better person today. Well, everything you do takes courage. So that's why I encourage everyone to stand up firmly for what you believe is right and to continue on doing what you believe is true and correct. That takes courage. Love.
Ryan Pitts was a young sergeant on duty in Afghanistan when Taliban fighters struck his observation post. Severely wounded, he fought on amid hellish small arms and RPG fire, eventually calling in artillery onto his own position to stop the assault. Here's more of Pitt's story and his thoughts on what it means to have courage.
One thing I'll never forget from that day was just the chaos. I was one of the senior non-commissioned officers there. Myself and Matt Gobble were wounded in the opening moments of the battle. A lot of these kids were 20. Most of them couldn't even buy a beer. And with the 2 leaders down, none of them missed a beat. They just went right to doing their job. These guys continued to stick their hands up over sandbags, jump on top of trucks to try and reload weapon systems in direct view. 49 of us, a lot of guys weren't separated by more than 20 yards, but everybody really only saw their small slice of the pie. Courage to me isn't the absence of fear, it's the ability to move forward in the face of it. Everybody feels it. It's not that it's not there, it's a choice to continue to move forward and do the right thing when maybe everything in your body's telling you not to. I think courage is all around us. We can look at anything from the civil rights movement, the AIDS movement in the 80s, the amount of courage it takes to go against, everybody else thinking something's right when you know that it's not. Peer pressure is not exclusive to younger generations. Sticking up for what you know is right, regardless of the repercussions around you, that's courage. That can even be in your community of sticking up for, maybe it's an underrepresented group or a group that does deserve some support. There's lots of ways that courage can be exhibited in everyday life. I think we all feel fear. I've talked about it with the guys that I've served with. We felt fear at different times in combat. Courage isn't the absence of fear, it's the choice to move forward in the face of it and do the right thing regardless of the odds. It doesn't always just have to come from you, right? You can draw that strength from the people around you, and we can make each other better. I think about that day that I was in the battle and talk about courage. Courage was just guys choosing to do their job, when bullets are falling like raindrops and everything in your body, however many thousands of years or millions of years of evolution are gonna say, probably flight, not fight in the situation. I think when we look at others and we see the courage that they exhibit, it's something for us to aspire to, because I certainly looked at what those guys that day and I drew on their courage to be like, despite the fact that I was wounded, let's get back in the fight. This is gonna take all of us. And I think we made each other better.
When we come back, more from our conversations with Medal of Honor recipients on the nature of bravery. Stay with us. Welcome back to our special episode of Defense News Weekly. David Bellavia went to incredible lengths as an Army staff sergeant to save his unit in a deadly battle in Fallujah, Iraq. Wounded and in the dark, he fought until his men, his brothers, were safe and the threat around them eliminated. While most won't enter combat as a test of their mettle, Bellavia says courage can be found and exercised in all kinds of everyday situations, and Americans have an obligation to try to find bravery where they can. Here's more of what Bellavia had to say on the topic.
I just remember the guys, the soldiers I served with. Combat just has this incredible way of distilling everything down to its base parts. And it's, existential, because there's a real threat on the other side of a door that wants to take your life. But in that moment, it was like us against the world. It's the worst moment of your life, but it's also the best moment of your life. When you're a kid, you think of standing up to a bully. You think of the times in your life that you could stand up for what's right. But when you start seeing adults fight disease, fight cancer, divorce, economic issues, those are the little moments that all build up to a crossroads of who are you? Are you the person you say you are? Are you the person you want to be? I have these challenges every day of my life. It has nothing to do with war. It's about integrity. It's about being the father you want to be to your children. It's about being the employee you say you're going to be, the citizen you say you're going to be. You're going to have a moment in your life that is going to be a Medal of Honor moment. A moment that everyone has where they say, I am the person that I was raised to be. I'm the person I say I am. I'd always thought that death came with bullets and bombs, and every person I'd ever see lose their life was not wanting to do it. And somehow our whole existence is to stop death, do what we have to do. And after seeing my dad go through cancer, I realized that there was a glory in the fight, and his grace and his strength, his faith was so moving in a way that I'd never seen anyone do that before. And when you're 8 years old, your dad's Superman. You know, I was a 42-year-old man that looked at my dad and thought, man, he's Superman. He is still, you know, I want to be that to my kids because I'm forever changed for the better. Seeing this fight, I can't tell you that he lost. You know, he dominated it. And he taught me the importance of being the man you say you're going to be. This award represents one day in my life, but I want to be judged by what I do every single day. My job as a Medal of Honor recipient is to remind people that we should be this person every single day. There are Americans that knew the decision that they were going to make was going to cost them their lives, and they did it anyway. They would say, yes, this is who I am. My integrity, my honor, my soul is more important than what you think of me. And if we can do that with 8 and 10-year-olds, we are going to have the best 150 years in front of us, because that's contagious. That makes America stronger and better. Courage is not something that stands apart. It's our obligation. And I want to remind young people that when they see their country, this is the ultimate gift that we've been given, and we can go two ways with it. The goal is to raise a generation of people that are decent, show dignity, show respect, but also love their country and their way of life and are willing to do anything to preserve it.
When we return, an Army Ranger on how speaking up and trying to right wrongs is a chance for everyone to show their mettle. Don't go away. Welcome back. Army Ranger LeRoy Petry lost part of his arm when he picked up a live grenade thrown at him and his men and hurled it away to save them. Despite his valor in combat, Petry says you don't need that kind of opportunity to show bravery. You can exercise the same kind of fortitude by speaking up when you see something wrong. Here are more of his thoughts from the Honor Project.
I think the one thing that stands out in my mind is seeing Higgins next to me in the helicopter and saying, "You saved us, you saved us." And knowing that him and Robinson were going to be okay. I'm glad I survived, but I'd do it all over again. Because those guys next to me, one's a cop in North Carolina, the other has 6 kids out in Oregon. They needed me to have that courage that day, and I'm glad I did. I think courage is inside of every one of us. It's not something that's you're born with, it's a learned. You can build your courage as simple as trying something new, getting comfortable with the uncomfortable. You're gonna make mistakes, and it's going to be difficult, and it's okay. Try not to, learn from others, but at the same time, if you see something wrong, have the courage to stand up and do something about it or say something about it. One of the things that would help develop courage for me personally was building resilience. When I was a young kid, I'd run up to my mom, crying sometimes. I'd say, "Mom, so-and-so's teasing me," or they called me names, and she would look down at me and say, "Show me the blood." And at that point, I knew that my mom wasn't going to solve all my problems and nobody else was, that I had to have the courage to put the first foot forward of solving my own problems before I asked for help. And then I could ask for help. And that's really what courage is doing it on your own at first. And so the more you challenge yourself to do your best every day, you'll build that resiliency, you'll build that character. Be a part of the change that you wish to see in this country. It starts with us, being better citizens to make this country better. Don't just complain about things, help your neighbors, be a better citizen, be a better person, a father, a brother, a sister, a mother, whatever you are, be your best at it. Not for yourself, but for others around you. And when you are challenged with responsibility, leadership, fatherhood, parenthood, people find courage, and it comes in the form of love. What you love will give you courage. It's your story and your life that you get it right. It's your decisions, and why not make good ones?
When we come back, our final stories from the Honor Project, reflections on courage. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Defense News Weekly. I'm Diana Stancy. Paris Davis was in the midst of a grueling 2-day battle when a wounded soldier asked him if he was going to die. Davis replied, "Not before me." Such incredible fearlessness in the face of impending death can be a hallmark of what people call courage. But Davis says it goes further and is innate in almost everyone. The ability to act when scared, he says, is at its root. Here's more from Davis in our interviews for the Honor Project.
We had 3 people that were on the action with me, all Americans, but they were at different locations when the battle started. The first person that I went after was a person named Brown. Brown had been shot near the temple of his head. It took me about an hour and a half to get to him. I found a way to grab him under his armpits and drag him about 150 yards to a place where he could be evacuated in a helicopter. And I remember very distinctly when I got there, he said, "Sir, am I about to die?" And I said, "Not before me." You're about to cross the street, a little kid runs out in front of you, you see a car coming, you forget about the car, you think about the little kid, you grab him, you pick him up, and you run across the rest of the street. I say, when you do something like that, you don't know what you're doing, but you do it, and in the end, it's exactly what you wanted to do. One of the things that I thought was really important in being able to be in charge of troops is to be able to share with them. And one of the things we always talked about, even in training, was courage. It was a thing that came over you at a moment you least expected it, and something you did that showed others that you were still with them. It was something that made you feel good. You didn't know why, at the same time you were just scared to death. That's when a person does something not for his betterment, but for the betterment of the action he's about to take. It makes everyone on the other side feel better, know better, and glad that they are where they are. And that's usually being an American.
Earl Plumlee survived the desperate fighting that led to his Medal of Honor to understand something. Courage can come from grand risks and momentous feats, but it can also come from small acts. Ultimately, bravery is an act of love, he says, a desire to help and to save. Keen insights from a decorated soldier. Here's more from Plumlee on the nature of courage.
The thing I recall most about that morning was it was just such a pretty day. Really clear morning. You could see the mountains off in the distance, and I was thinking just what a really pretty country Afghanistan was. When I think courage that I witnessed for the first time would be my father the day our house was destroyed by a tornado. Even though he was severely injured and the storm was still kind of raging, he gathered the family up from the front yard and got us all loaded up in a car and drove us to the hospital. Broadly for me, courage is overcoming your fear and doing what you know to be right, regardless of the consequences. I think most people face fear day to day, and whether you are presented with that situation and you turn your eyes and do what you know in your heart is the safe solution, or whether you steel yourself and do what you know is right, regardless the outcome, I think that's courage. You don't have to have somebody shooting at you on the battlefield to display courage. It starts small. I think developing big acts of courage and heroism starts by doing small acts. You kind of pave your way to being ready to be that person and being that courageous person, even if it's just small, uncomfortable decisions you make in your day. Would just set the tone for you to be that person. You see a soldier on the battlefield, you expect some form of bravery. And then you see a 14-year-old Boy Scout risk his life. Bravery is really an act of love. Nobody ever was brave for hateful reasons. They were always brave for loving reasons, either protecting what's behind them or protecting the men or women that they serve with on their left and right. It's always something compassionate and meaningful that guys are anchored to. I've never seen anybody be profoundly brave with malice in their heart.
And that's all we have time for in this week's episode. We'll see you next week on Defense News Weekly.